Hey, this is Dave from MetalEpidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. What is up, guys? Dave here from Metal Epidemic, back with another album review. For this review, Duncan, Kyle and myself have been checking out the new album from Metal Quintet, Within the Ruins. The band's new album, Black Heart, will be released on November 27th via eOne Heavy. So, album number 6 for Within the Ruins, and Black Heart follows up their 2017 release, Halfway Human. This album also hears the new vocalist Steve Tinnan make his debut after joining the band in 2018. So, Within the Ruins, are you guys familiar with Within the Ruins?
I recognise the name.
Okay.
But when I sat to listen to this, I realised that they are not the band I thought they were.
Okay.
So, yeah, like very, very, very quickly, unless they've changed quite a bit, their sound is not similar to how I remember. So it makes me think I've got the wrong band. It's a long way of saying I don't know who they are.
Do you know where they're from?
I mean, I can hazard a guess. I'm sure
find out how wrong this is.
I'm sure it's wrong. I thought potentially America. Dave has not shot me down yet. He is kind of smiling though.
For once, Duncan, you're actually spot on.
There we go. What I did was picked a massive country. Picked a massive country and just said, I picked a continent, didn't I? Really, North America is where I think they're from, Dave. I think you'll find. They have that kind of, for once, I kind of picked out straight. They have a particular sound, which made me think America. America! Fuck yeah!
Yes. Massachusetts. I had heard the band prior to this album. I had heard their 2017 release. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I do enjoy about Within the Ruins is, I've got to start with it, that guitar tone.
Ah, interesting.
Yes. Joe, the guitarist, I'm pretty sure it's a 7-string that he uses, and it's tuned pretty low. If you hadn't guessed already, and I'm almost positive that I read somewhere that he uses bass strings on the bottom 2 strings of his guitar.
Fuck's sake. Oh, abomination is this. Just get a bass player. But
listen to it. That doesn't surprise me at all. The guitar tone is pretty meaty, it's pretty devastating sounding. And so, fans of the band, you can relax. The guitar sounds just as brutal as it did on their previous album. For me on this one, for the most part, this is a pretty solid album. The new vocalist they brought in, he seems to have slotted in quite nicely in the album. He's got a great tone. If anything, I'd say he has a slightly deeper tone than Tim, the previous vocalist, but he can also do the high screams and stuff as well. Again, like their previous albums, they do like to scatter in some clean melodies. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it might be the bassist that does the cleans. I think, not 100% sure on that, but I think it was. But that first track on the album, Domination, when the clean vocals kick in, I don't know about you guys, but I felt like I'd been transported back to the 90s. It was like almost like 90s boy band, like pop melodies, like something you'd hear from like Backstreet Boys or NSYNC or something like that. It was weird, but it kind of worked, alongside the these really tight machine gun like riffs that are like doubled up with the tight bass drum patterns. It kind of worked. I don't know about you guys. What did you reckon of the first track?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you know this, Dave, but Backstreet's back, all right.
I did not.
There we go. That's a deep cut. I say deep cut, sold millions. I mean, to me, I know what you're saying about the guitar tone. The guitar is punishing, but the clean vocals probably accentuate the bit I enjoyed the most about this release, which is the production. Okay. The production on this album is incredible. I mean, it's produced within an inch of its life. That machine gun guitar tone you're talking about is produced within an inch of its life, and it gives it that kind of genty, bouncy, really syncopated, but incredibly, it's very difficult not to headbang to the majority of this album, and or smile during this album. It just has that kind of infectious sort of rhythm and groove. But it's an album which gets really creative and playful in the production department, particularly on electronics, loops, all that stuff that starts to feed in and out, never overstaying its welcome, used cleverly as a production aid as opposed to taking prominence. I don't know if they have a guy that's doing that, or if this is just a case of this is production things they've put in. I'd be very surprised if they've got like a synth player or anything like that in this band. It just sounds like something that, to be honest, it sounds like something, if the guitarist is doing the sort of things that you're telling me he's doing, it would not surprise me if this is just something that the band's just incorporated. They like these little elements of mixed in as well. That's, to me, the bits that stood out the most was when you're getting the breaks of the clean vocals, which I think in a release like this and a sound like this is absolutely 100% necessary. It is what makes it interesting. It is what kept my attention. Was we're going through all this stuff now, and boom, here's a chorus, and it's catchy and it's memorable and it works, and yet it's a bit saccharine in parts. But I think that juxtaposes really well against what's happening in the band. I mean, I think if you have the kind of broody style of, I don't know why I did that in quotation marks that no one can hear, and I don't know why I referenced it when no one can see me, but I've had too many cups of coffee, by the way. But I mean, if you've got the kind of more, on some level, mid to deeper range vocal melodies, I don't think they sit well on a release like this. I think the production's of such a clean level that a kind of more pop aesthetic clean vocal works. Definitely on tracks like Domination, Open Wounds, fucking loved that. And I listened to this album twice today, so this was the last one I listened to at the collection that he gave me. It's probably the one that's freshest in my mind. But even on tracks like, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but then they're left it open because they've missed the E's, and it's a Reckless, I imagine that's supposed to say. They're like, fuck the E's, don't need no fucking vowels in this bitch, it's all the consonants. And it's another great example of, they're actually really competent songwriters, and I know that sounds like a backhanded compliment, but nothing on this album is remarkable, but it's all very, very, very solid, and it's all well constructed, and I think that's to their benefit and not to their detriment, because at no point here was I like, oh well, this is an amazing, like with a lot of bands that are in a similar genre to this, and they're not a gent band, but they have a genty aesthetic, where it's like, oh well, the guitarist is the main guy, he's the bedroom guitarist, and everyone else has just been added on as a vehicle to get the guitarist out there. Everyone on here is doing as good a job as the next person beside them, and I think that works. They sound like a well-rehearsed, well-formed band, but like I say, like if you take a lot of the production techniques that are on here, like the synths and the loops and all the rest, you strip that back, I don't know if I would enjoy the release as much, because it would sound like about 50 other bands that have released albums this year. Those are the things, those little details, and specifically the vocal melody, that make Within the Ruins stand out and infinitely more memorable than the aforementioned 50 bands that I can't remember. So a long way to get to your answer, but yeah, I think that's what works for me.
Yeah, there are similarities. I noticed like on Deliverance, there's a clear After the Burial similarity on that track, especially in the lead work. The little lead runs and stuff that he's doing are very similar. And even as the track progresses, some of the more slowed down kind of groove riffs do have that kind of vibe about them as well. It's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're an After the Burial fan, but it was a little bit familiar. And I suppose that's my kind of only real criticism here. Although this album is very well executed in terms of the structure of the songs, their technical ability is great, and the production, as you say, is very punchy and polished. Probably one of the best productions in my opinion. But it's not anything I haven't heard Within the Ruins do before. But that being said, it's still an enjoyable album. It ticks all the required boxes.
Yeah, I mean, Slayer made a career off of just releasing albums which weren't overly dissimilar to the previous release. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's a place for it. If you have a lane that you're comfortable in and you execute it well, I mean, sometimes it's good to stay within that lane, because when you go out of that lane and try something that maybe you're not as familiar with, that's when the mistakes can happen. I mean, sometimes it works. You can come from left field and release a song that everyone's like, this is what they should be doing from now on. But the majority of the times you'll find that people will be like, well, it doesn't sound like that band anymore, and they've sold out, you know, or the other way, or they went too obscure or whatnot. But I mean, I'm not familiar with their back catalogue, but certainly off listening to this, I would check out other Within the Ruins albums. So
okay, Kyle, what about yourself? What do you make of it?
I mean, what you guys are saying about the production, I completely disagree.
Oh, wow.
I think it's far too freaking overproduced. Every drum hit is exactly the same. It's, you know, they've got 2 kick samples and 1 snare sample, and okay, the cymbals are the same, and every single guitar and bass like attack is aligned to the grid, and it's just sucked all of the life out of it, which sucks because the riffs are actually really good and the songwriting's really good, and like you were saying, the clean parts really do kind of sell the songs quite well, and like they're juxtaposed very well with all the heaviness. But it's like, it just, I don't know, it's too clinical, it's too precise. They're not Meshuggah, they're not a gent band. They have that aesthetic like you said, but it's so overproduced. It's just like, you should have taken it a step back and let the players fucking well play, and not, it sounds like a drum machine with a dude in his bedroom going and it's like, the amount of edits I heard that were terrible. And so, you know, I've talked about this before on other reviews and stuff. It's just like, okay, you really need to learn how to edit. Whoever is doing their production, I read his name, I've forgotten it already. It's no offense to the guy, but there are some things that people can do and they should not. It's like, you should have taken a step back. Like, does this sound good this way? No, it doesn't. Sucks the life out of it. It's far too clean and squeaky and polished, and just, it doesn't work with metal, in my opinion. It's just, it's too much. All of the, like, when they're playing the blast beats and stuff, all of the snares are so loud. It's like, have you ever played a blast beat in your life and every snare hit is exactly the same and, you know, really that loud? It's like, no, blast beats are kind of quieter than everything else, but
yeah.
Other than that, the production it's just too much. It's just overblown and overdone, and just sucks away what the songs are and what the players are doing. Like, I had no idea that the guitarist had 2 bass strings on the bottom of the guitar, because that could have been a production trick. He could have just boosted the low end with a Pultec EQ, you know? I have no clue. You can get that kind of sound out of I have a guitar here, 7-string guitar with regular guitar strings that I can get a sound like that out of. And it's like, yeah, okay, no idea. Guitar tone actually was fucking fantastic. The first time I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, oh my god. Listen a bit closer, I was like, oh no. But other than that, I mean, the songs are really good and the riffs are great, and I'm like, if it hadn't have been produced within an inch of its life, it would have been fantastic and would have been one of my top albums of the year, but unfortunately.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I did, as I said, I did read that somewhere about the bass strings. I'm not sure if he's used it on this album, but he certainly did in the past. And I'm sure it was something to do with the tuning. You know, they tuned very low. Again, I'm not 100% sure if they've used that on this album, but yeah, I can hear. I know what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying, Kyle.
Yeah.
But musically, I thought it was pretty good. I think it was well delivered. I think the riffs, you know, they deliver the heaviness and abundance. There is a lot of variety on the album in terms of the pace and the rhythms and stuff. I mean, if your neck is not hurting by the end of 86, then you might want to get that checked out. There is also there's a little riff reference on that track to one of the greatest kids cartoon characters of all time. One of my personal favourites, the Pink Panther. I don't know if any of you clocked it on that track, but they play the riff to the Pink Panther on that track. And actually, that's a completely instrumental track, 86, but it works really well in the middle of the album. You're still getting all that heavy stuff, but it almost feels like an interlude before the second half of the album. And the second half of the album delivers the same kind of standard of quality. It's very consistent from start to finish, really. But as I say, the only problem I had was there was nothing about it that made me stop and go, "Oh, that's really different," or like they were really pushing the boundaries. It just felt a little expected to me. That was all. Not a bad album by any means. These guys, as I said, are very proficient at what they do, and I think the presentation is great on this album. But it didn't persuade me enough to want to put the album on repeat, if you know what I mean.
I will say that the mix of like not genres but styles is pretty good. Like they've got some really good like some of the shred parts are really cool, and it had like there was one riff that was kind of Iron Maiden, like a gallopy thing, and that was awesome to hear actually, like doing something that sort of referential to things in the past. But most metal bands these days are like, we're not going to do a gallop. I'm not Steve Harris, but they're like, we're doing it. So I did enjoy that.
Cool. Ratings wise for this album, for Black Heart, where are we sitting out of 5 for this album? I've got a feeling Duncan quite liked this. Duncan, what would you score on this album?
So let me justify my grade just for a second here. Let me put it in my stall. I know where Kyle's coming from. I mean, I don't do production, and to me, it's one of the things that is never the first thing that captures my attention. It's usually the thing that, like on the second listen, I'll pay more attention to. I'm really fluidic when it comes to my production, in that, you know, I listen to a band, I take it on face value, especially if it's a first time listen, that is just the sound the band are going for. So for me, that sort of thing works. I don't have the ear that you have either to pick out those specific like editing things or whatnot, but I think it does suit their sound. I think they're a band that's very much like After the Burial's a great comparison, where it does sound like it's been, you know, like almost too much time's been spent producing it. And at the same time, you know, whilst I enjoy all those mixtures of elements, I think first and foremost they actually write good songs. Like I say, it's enough to make me want to go back and check some of their previous releases, but I do lean back on the fact that nothing is exceptional on this album. It's just very well constructed. So yeah, 3.5 from me. This is the hallmark of a straight down the road, really well written album that has a bit of re-listen value. It certainly isn't going to make a dent on the end of the year list, but I mean, I could see myself going back to listen to Within the Ruins definitely again. There's enough in here that, particularly, like I say, production, but on those, like the vocal melodies in particular, that really caught my attention. And you wouldn't know that this was a kind of, I'm a new singer joining the band. That all sounded, you know, they've picked a singer who definitely has a tone that fits perfectly within the band. So yeah, 3.5 from this guy.
Nice. I would join you in that. Yeah, I would agree. 3.5. As you said, it's not exceptional, but still enjoyable. I still enjoyed the album. I don't know how much I'll go back to it between now and the end of the year, but there was definitely plus points on this album. I did enjoy it for the most part. 3.5 for me. Kyle, what about yourself?
I mean, when I listen to an album, I'm not listening for production, but it just stood out here. Yeah. Like, as soon as I got halfway through, I was like, hang on a minute, that's samples. And then that just makes me go down the goddamn rabbit hole. And then, but yeah, I mean, aside from that, I did enjoy how all the songs were put together, and you're right, this new singer did fit the tone of the band really well. And if that's the type of sound they're going for, I don't know if it works, because a lot of their stuff, like I said, they went back to that Iron Maiden kind of riff and the shred stuff, and that works better with more natural sounding like elements instead of the hyper produced, ridiculously everything is even thing. But I mean, they do what they do. They're obviously happy with it, or they won't release it, so I'm glad for them for that at least. But I mean, I'll give it a 3 out of 5, right down the middle, because good songs, not exceptional, but and the production for me just kind of let it down a little bit.
Okay, nice one. This one drops on November 27th on eOne Heavy. The album is called Black Heart. If you want to check out the band, it's facebook.com/Within the Ruins. I'll put a little link in the description below. Let us know what you think. If you've heard any of the singles, if you've heard the album, drop us some comments in below. Happy to hear your thoughts. Thanks for checking out the review. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. We'll speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
See you later.